All right, so got the brake booster in. Basically everything is done. I need to pull it out and do a little bit of final welding on the bungs, a little trim up on the floor to give me a little more room, but other than that, it's all done and working. And I'll kind of show you real quick here what it all looks like, and you can see what's involved with doing something like this. So, sorry, I got these lights under, it's dark. So here's the booster all mounted. You can see where the floor is cut out now. I'm gonna actually trim the floor back here a tiny bit more, so whenever I slide this back, I did make this unboltable too, the bottom of the bracket, so you can just take the whole thing off, or you can take it off from here. Either way, and everything is welded in, so all the nuts are welded on top of everything, so you don't have to get a wrench up there. You just can undo the nuts. Makes it way easier. Even the bungs that I put in are all threaded, so you just can undo the bolts. You don't have to, or the nuts, you don't have to deal with all the bolts and all that crap up on the top. But anyway, when I slide this back, it's a little tight, so I'm going to cut this back about 3/4 of an inch. That way when I slide it back, you can take it off without having to wiggle it too much or anything. You want to make sure that this stuff is easy to remove if you have to work on it. You know what I mean? Accessible. I've worked on too many things that people do and you can't even work on it. They never thought about, like, what are you going to have to do if you actually have to surface it, you know? So anyway, so that's all in. The bracket's all bolted in here. Here's the other thing I had to do. And this is the kind of stuff that a lot of people don't think about. It takes forever. Hold on, sorry, I know these lights are bright. Let me move it around. So let's see if you can see. So this is actually the e-brake cable, but it was dragging against this. So I took a tube and I bent the tube, and then I put a slice on it so I could slide the cable in it. You can kind of see that, I think, right there. So that way this rolls along the smooth tube where the bend is. So that way when you pull it, it's just like a guide. So your e-brake still works. So I just put that up in there and tacked it. I got to weld the back side of it too when I take this out. And then that way you can just take this out this way. It's really easy. And that way you don't have no issues if you want to keep your e-brake, which I was able to do on this car. So you want to make it good. You don't want this thing dragging on there. Then it's going to fray it and break. So, all right, here's the other part. This is where a ton of the work went into. Also, there's a lot going on here, actually. Sorry, I'm trying to get a good video of this. There, how's that? Yeah, you can kind of see that there. Okay, so you can see all the linkages work now. It's the brake pedal. Everything goes through there. You can see how the bar is Z'd. I'm gonna put a brace on that bar actually too, right here. But I also have it pinned on both sides so it's super strong with solid stock inside that. But you can see how everything works good now. Everything's working. When I'm done, I will put lock nuts on all this stuff too, all this hardware. Make sure everything has lock nuts on it. You can also grease this right here by that fitting. So everything works pretty good. I just had to notch the frame out here a little bit more to make it clear good. I like having more clearance than not enough, so you don't ever have no issues. Also, if you want to take anything apart, it makes it easier. So that's pretty much it. I'm just going to pull it all out, finish welding these bungs, trim this floor a little bit more, and paint everything and be ready to go back in. And that's it. Actually, I got to bench bleed the master and put the proportioning valve and stuff on it. But as you can see now, let me grab the level. So you can see we have room under the frame now. That's level with the frame. That's actually the rivets on here. I left these bolts. I'm going to put Allens on it, but there's rivets on the bottom of the frame too, so it'll be about the same. So it definitely gives me, I'll put on the rivet to the bolt. So it gives me plenty of room. So that way it's not going to hit anything. But yeah, so it made this job twice as hard lifting this up above the frame, because the way that they originally give it to you, this thing hangs down 1.5 inches below the frame, which is no good for what we're doing. I mean, it might be fine for you if you just have a lowered car, it's fine. But if this is laying on the frame, then no way. So that's pretty much it. Got it all done. That was a major chore, a lot of work. To be honest, probably twice as much work as I thought it'd end up being. It doesn't look hard now because it's all in there and everything works, but all the figuring and the mocking up and all that stuff takes a lot of time. You know, even bending the rod to get it the right angle so everything is straight in line when that the brake pedal pushes it. All that stuff. And the reason why, just in case you forgot or you didn't see, but that Z in the bar is because I had to put the master cylinder so high to clear the frame that the pivot points would not have met. It would have been right in the middle of the actual pivot point, so that wouldn't work. So that's why it has to come down so we have enough throw, the 1 inch of throw that we needed to engage that all the way. So, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to work great. So we'll go ahead and pull it all apart and check it out and move on to the next thing. So stay tuned to see the next part of it, which is just finishing up the front suspension on this thing, bagging the front of it, shocks, and then just hooking up all the sensors and everything, and then we're done with this thing. So stay tuned and check it out. It's gonna be pretty badass. Good morning, everybody. So we are getting ready to start the front suspension on the Merc. All the brakes are done now, all mounted up, ready to go. And so we're getting ready to put in the classic Performance Products front A-arm kit and disc brake kit that they sell. They're the only ones that sell a kit for this car that's a direct bolt-on. Otherwise, you have to use the factory A-arms with the factory old uprights, which are not very favorable. Much rather have a spindle on it, so that way parts are readily available. They use a Granada spindle and brakes on it, so if you ever have an issue, you can go to any parts store and you can readily get parts available anywhere for that, or online you can get the parts. If you want to buy the parts for this front suspension, only a couple people make them, and they're very pricey, and if you have an issue driving down the road somewhere, you're not going to be able to pull into an auto parts store and buy them, that's for sure. So this is actually a great way to upgrade your front suspension on this, and it also has a 2-inch drop in the A-arm, so that helps with lowering it, because the Granada spindles are not offered in a lowered spindle. Fat Man's used to make them, but they've closed down now, so you cannot get them. So this kit is the only kit that I found that is out there that is actually made for this car. So we're going to give it a shot on here. Classic Performance, their products are nice. I like their stuff. I've used it tons of times on lots of projects, and I've always had good luck with their stuff. It's never an issue. So we're going to make sure that we give a good review of this setup as we put it on the car, and it might be a good option for you, moving forward. It's not cheap. It's a couple grand. It's about $2,300 for the setup, but you get the A-arms, you get the brakes, it's a whole complete setup, rotors, calipers, the whole deal. So for these types of cars, that's kind of the best way to go. You really don't want to clip it if you don't have to. It's just unnecessary to clip it if you can change the A-arms and get modern style A-arms and ball joints and brakes on it. There's really no reason to clip the car. Just leave it like it is. There's nothing wrong with it, doing it that way. The kit, the way it comes, is set up with coils, okay, like normal stock coils. We are going to airbag it. So the A-arms do come. I'll show you the A-arms. So they do come with the the spring pocket, so you can bolt the spring and a shock in it. So you can either cut this plate out, make your own plate, or you can adapt to this plate, and that's what we're going to do. These come powder coated, so I'll make a plate that actually mounts to this for the airbag to sit on. So that's what we'll do. You can see the quality is good. It's nice. Everything is good on these things. It's set up so you can still run a bump stop, a sway bar if you want to. The front A-arms, they're already, they're same thing, newer ball joints, the whole deal, all powder coated. It comes with these upper plates, and these are like adapter plates. So this actually bolts onto the upper mount, the factory mount. Turn this down just a little bit. So this bolts to the factory mount like so, and then the A-arm mounts to it like that, okay? Comes with all the hardware, comes with these plates, so it comes with everything you need. It's a nice kit. I like it a lot. I think it's the way to go for sure for this thing. So I'm going with these bags on the front. So I know they make, you know, everybody has their own opinion on airbags, you know, and there's a lot of airbags out there that you can choose from. You can use Slam Specialties. These are Torx. You can use Firestone, which I really like. You can use Universal Air. They make nice airbags. They also make a single bellow bag. I just, with this particular car and the style, the suspension, I've done hundreds of these different kinds of cars and trucks, and these bags work the best for this. And the reason why I say that is that a lot of people, like, they might want to put a slam bag. Well, that's fine. The slam bag is smaller in diameter. If you get the bigger one, you know, you have to get a much bigger one, and the bag is like 3 times the price. And then you have to put a lot more air in it to more air pressure, which is fine for some applications. But for this one, I prefer these bags. You don't have to run that much air pressure in them. They ride really nice, and these bags will last. I mean, I got, you know, they'll last forever. So not forever, but I mean, you know what I mean. So these bags will be in there for a long time. You're gonna get, if you take care of them and, you know, and check them every once in a while, the worst thing that'll happen to them is that, you know, just like any rubber, if it gets in weather, they'll start to get a little cracks and dry rot on them. And using the slam bags, I've used tons of those, and I've ran into problems with those cracking and dry rotting right away, like within a couple of years. And the type of rubber they use, I'm not sure, but the Firestones, Conitex, and these, that doesn't happen. It lasts a lot longer, closer to 10 years before that starts happening. So I just prefer those. You can use whatever you want to use. Just remember that the smaller diameter bag you use, the more air you got to put, and the worse ride you're going to get. The bigger diameter bag you can put in there, the less air, the better ride you're going to get, and more lift. So that's kind of what you want to get out of this. You know, you want to ride nice. So that's what I'm running on the front of this thing. You can make any of that stuff work however you want to make it work. And that'll all work. So it's just whatever your preference is, whatever you choose to use. All right. So that's the kit right there. So we're going to go ahead and pull the front suspension off this thing and start to get it all figured out of what we're going to do and how low it needs to go to lay the frame on the ground to match the rear. And just follow along, check it out. If you have a Merc or you want to do a Merc, you know, so I'm kind of wanting to do the videos on this just because if you go on the internet, there's really nothing. Like, there's no stuff on Mercs anywhere. I did want to cover, like, even on the brakes. Let me show this real quick. All right, so let me see if I can see good enough. I think you can see good enough. So all the brakes are all installed. The rear brake lines are all plumbed all the way back. I put a Wilwood proportioning valve on it here, so that way you can adjust the pressure to the rear of the car. That way you can dial in wherever you want. So every brake system is a little bit different, and it's just depending on, you know, sometimes the rear brakes are going to want to lock up soon, and you have to adjust the pressure down to choke it down. And then you can dial in kind of right where you like it. All right, so it's always important. I always like to run an adjustable proportioning valve to the rear brakes. All this stuff is all hooked up and ready to go. It's got the remote fill on here. It's above the frame, so we're good to go there. So kind of wanted to show, I guess what I wanted to talk about a little bit is that, yeah, we're starting on the front suspension. We've already done the brake stuff, but here's the deal. I can't find anywhere on the internet, not anywhere on YouTube or anything, where they show an under the brake booster, under the frame, brake booster install anywhere. So it was just kind of, I was surprised about that, because most hot rods, this is where you put them, like 99% of them. Most people don't want this in the motor compartment where you see it all. This car, we could have done that. It was a lot, I mean, it would have been, you know, a one-day job. But when you open the hood, there it is. And on this car, it's not a show car, so it would be fine. But, you know, it just looks so much nicer in there, you know, with this not in there. So yes, it's a lot more work to put it under here, but at the end of the day, I like it better. And most of these cars, this is where they end up going. I've done a lot of them this way. So I was just a little surprised that there's not any of this install, not just for Mercury's, but for other cars too. I don't see anybody with any install under here doing it. I don't know why, but that's kind of why I wanted to do it. So check out the videos of installing all of this, and you can kind of see how it is. And, you know, that it all is tucked up under the frame now, and that you can do this to your car too and keep everything under there, keep your motor compartment clean. You can, you know, you might have to do some linkages like this depending on your car, but if it's an automatic, you don't have to do all this. It actually comes with a pedal already, and you know, it's a lot easier to install, but this particular one is not, so it's a little bit more difficult. But you can check out the YouTube channel and see the install on all this. So here's the front suspension, which is, let's go over here so you can see a little bit better. Front suspension obviously is pretty basic, right? So this factory sway bar will not be being reused on this car. The way it mounts, okay, is not what we need to use, and it's also, look how tiny it is, you know. So a lot of times we pull the sway bars off these cars as long as you run the bags individually. I prefer to have a sway bar on if they work, or if somebody wants to put them on. This car, particular one's not going to have it. You don't need to have it. I mean, it does work better. Let's be honest, it does. So it depends on if they want to put one on or not. It's up to the customer. Even on mini trucks, a lot of mini trucks I've done, I've re-put the sway bars back on. It's just, they handle so much nicer with a sway bar, obviously. So, but not, it's a lot of work to put a sway bar back on with an airbag in there. So, so when we're all said and done, we will see where that all falls with this. You can kind of see the the factory setup. You know, you can see the uprights here. These are the uprights. All right, so how they run through here. Okay, so with the kingpin setup in the front, it's just old school. So that's why we're going to be changing it to all spindles and disc brakes. So we'll get the A-arm stuff installed first, and then we'll go to the brakes and throw the brakes all on and set it all up and bag it. So that's pretty much it. This car is bone stock up in the front. Actually, I mean, it's bone stock, but they heated the coils or cut them a little bit. It was lowered just like 2 inches. So stay tuned, check it out, see if you like it. Hopefully it'll be something that you that helps you along with your ride. Oh yeah, you can see right here, sorry. You can see where they heated the coils. They're all wonk. So, but look at this side, it's not even like that. It's different. So anyway, it's all good. So another thing you need to think about is whenever you do all this front end, you need to make sure that the rims, the lug pattern is going to be different, like on this car. So you have to change the rims. And also you need to make sure you have the proper size rim to fit the disc brakes, because the 14-inch rims will not fit the disc brakes. You have to go to 15-inch rims. So that's something to think about also. It's another added expense. So just make sure you understand that, and that the lug pattern in the front may be different than the rear if you leave the stock rear end in it. If you have a forward rear end or whatever, then you know you're set. These will be the same lug pattern as that, so you won't have to mess with that. So anyway, just things to think about. Check it out, and so we'll get started on this thing and follow along and check it out and see if this is something you guys want to do to your cars. All right, getting ready to blow the front suspension apart on this thing so you can kind of get a better look. A-arms are kind of funky looking, right? So disconnect your brake lines, obviously. Just the basic stuff. I'm gonna fast forward this thing just because, I mean, you don't need to see me unbolting every single little nut and bolt on this thing, but give you a kind of idea of what you're dealing with under here. It's not bad. We'll see if the A-arm clears this or not. I'm not sure. Might have to trim it out, which, you know, it's not a big deal if you need to, but so just remember to whenever you pull the springs out, drop the A-arms, just make sure that you remember they're under a lot of tension, right? So be careful. Just, I mean, I'm sure most of you are experienced that are doing this, but there might be somebody who's doing it for the first time. So pull the shock off first, and then whenever you go to drop off the pull the uprights loose or your spindle on anything that you do, have a jack underneath it, and then lower it down so you can pull the spring out, because if you don't, that spring pressure will just blow apart and hurt you. So make sure you do that. and the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to go through some fast forward stuff on this and pull this front end off. And also, another tip, don't do both sides at once. Pull one side off and fit it all up to make sure it's all good. That way when you go to the other side, you kind of know what you're dealing. And if you ever need to look at anything, you kind of still have it together to do that. So don't try to blow every single thing apart. Just blow one side apart at a time. All right? All right, cool. We'll go through and do that. Okay, so here's all the suspension off on the driver's side. I left the A-arm, spindle, everything connected, and then I just took off the top bolt that goes through the upright. And once I did that, I pulled all the lower suspension off, and then that way you can lift up the A-arm and access these bolts because they're a little tight to get to right there. So so definitely make sure that you do that, and it make it a lot easier to get it out. So that's pretty much it right there. So it's all out. That's kind of what it looks like. Everything's off, and it's all ready to go. So that's a good starting point. So now we'll go ahead and do the other side. All right, we're getting ready to cut off the bump stop mounts here in the front. Got a couple things marked with red paint. Got to knock off these rivets, cut the bracket off here, both sides, and then once that's done, you can see those right there. Cut it off under here, right there. Once that's done, you can see where we're going to have to cut. Get under here with the air body saw and cut around here to give us clearance for the A-arms, since they'll be lifted up 2 inches. Since these are everything is dropped 2 inches on this, so it gives you 2 inch lower. But we got to have room for the A-arms, so we'll start with this cut that out, and then once that's all cut out right there, then we'll go ahead and test fit the A-arms and go ahead and get those on there and make sure everything looks good. And then that way I can figure out pretty much where the bag, the cup size is going to be for this thing, how much I need to trim, if any of this, pocket. And also I need to figure out for shock location. On these old cars, what I've done in the past, I've actually went behind the frame here and notched this out and then boxed it in like with a round piece of metal tube or roll it, cut this out and make a tab up on the top. And I've actually ran the shock on the inside of the frame down to the A-arm, so that way it will never rub the tire, and you have full turn lock to lock and good shock location on these, and they ride amazing. I've done it on a whole bunch of Cadillacs and older Chevys whenever you use this stock style suspension. So that's what we're gonna do next. Let's go ahead and do that. Get these cut off first, and then we'll open the hood, move anything out of the way that needs to be done for here. We'll get that all trimmed out of there also. So that's cut off. Just take your time when you cut the stuff off. Don't cut into the frame. Leave a little extra so you can grind it down. Because I don't know yet whether I'm going to have to cut out too much of this or not. So I'd rather not have to be welding and filling spots back in. So just cut those off, knock them off real quick. Can knock down the rivets. I'll re-weld those holes back up so there's no holes there. And now we'll hop into the motor compartment and move out anything that needs to be moved and get in there and start trimming out the fender wells. All right, here we are. Now that we cut all the inner fender well out for the A-arms clearance, so you can kind of see what we did there. You got to be careful, make sure, because there was hoses and wires, so I had to move them out of the way and put something there to make sure it covered it, covered it up so that I didn't hit anything with the saw. I always go through with the cutoff wheel just a little at a time, just barely poke through, so that way I know that there's nothing on the other side. You don't want to jam the saw or that all the way back in there and hit anything. So that's kind of what it looks like once you get it all cut out. So the other side. Now, this is just to start with. Once you put everything in, if you need to make any adjustments, you can, but I always try to start with the smallest amount first. And depending on if we end up doing the shocks up here, I'll have to cut that out. But for now, I just cut out the minimum, and then we will go from there. This is kind of where a lot of people put the shocks back here, but on these cars with the steering the way it is, brake lines where they are, the way that the wheel turns, whenever you turn the wheel, it hits. So like I said, I try to run them inboard and notch the frame and box all the frame back in. So we'll see if that'll work on this particular one. I've done them on these cars with the stock A-arms, but not with this. So as long as it works with this one, that's what we'll do. So that's where we are. Next step is to go ahead and we're gonna have to cut out all the inner lip around this guy right here so the bag will fit in. Trim that out, and then we'll have to trim a little up here for the A-arm to go all the way down, so that way it lays all the way out. Get all that trimmed out, and then we'll throw the A-arms up on there and start test fitting everything. All right, we are putting the rear sensors on this thing. All the ride height sensors, trying to find a good location for them. And it's not as easy as you would think, just because you got to find somewhere to mount them where nothing's going to be in the way, the exhaust, all this stuff. But anyway, I got them all kind of mounted on there where they need to go. Everything is kind of done. I just got to wire them up. I didn't film all that just because, I mean, it's super time consuming. I got like a full day in just getting them all in there working. You have to cycle the suspension many times just to make sure everything's right. And so I'll just kind of show you real quick where they are, what they look like, and then we'll lift the car up again so you can see them cycle through the suspension. So here's where they are. On this car, worked out good here to the bars. I actually made plates that mount to the body there. It was the best spot. There was just too much stuff over here on the side of the frame. The exhaust was gonna be coming through here, and the only other place was up there, and then it just didn't have enough throw to where I felt good about it. So this is down in the down position too, all the way. So it's all the way down, and I can't go any lower than this. So that's pretty much where we are right there. This is with the frame on the ground. So these are all mounted. All the put spacers in here. It comes with these little spacers. I just trimmed them. They didn't need to be that long. I just trimmed them. Used one. I cut them in half and used one on each side. It worked out perfect. And then this plate that's mounted is drilled in tap, so you can just undo the stainless hardware right here and take it off without having to go inside the car or anything. And I made these plates and I just riveted them into the body here so they're all strong. And they ain't gonna go anywhere. So it's 3/16 plate, so it's plenty strong enough and enough bite to thread those in. So I'll go ahead and leave this here and cycle it up so you can kind of see how they work real quick. See that real fast. And right about there is, it's a little higher than ride height, but that right there is a little higher than ride height. And kind of what you're wanting is that these things just stay pretty, pretty straight. You don't want them binding because it'll break these off. It'll break the rods off. You don't want that. So these are all nice and straight right now. So that's how you kind of want those. So through the travel, you want to make sure that those stay decent and not bind up anywhere. All right, so here we go. That's all the way up right there off the stands. So at full max lift, you can still see. They're still not just a barely angle, so you can still turn them. It's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. Same with this side, same thing. So yeah, so they all work good, and they're also, you got to make sure that they don't go past. There's the stops. I'll show you that real quick. So they come with the stops on them. And when you're assembling it all, these stops are here because you don't want to go past this and bang the stop. That means it's going too far whenever you go through the travel up and down. So these are just temporary. You put these on to set it up, and then when you're done, you just pop them off. But as you can see, I still have room there, and when it's down all the way, I got the same amount of room. So what's ideal is that the stroke of your suspension, this should actually be under that just a little bit so it doesn't bottom out these stops. And that you don't want this rod to be straight with this one there where it could actually go over center. So anyway, so these came out pretty good. So those are done. So now I'm just gonna run the wires to them up here, and then you gotta splice in the plugs again, and just, you have to cut them to fit. I mean, you could ball it all up like this if you wanted to, but I'm not gonna do that. But you can. And then I'm going to go ahead and shorten the plugs, get those all mounted up, and then the rear, all that stuff is done. And then I can go ahead and finish cutting out the front suspension stuff for the airbags. So I just kind of stopped on that because I was waiting for a couple parts. So I figured I'd get these all mounted up in there now. So that way they're done. All right, so you can check that out. Like, if you're looking for, any AccuAir stuff, you can check out how all their stuff works on their webpage and what they have. But I don't see a lot of people showing the installs on this stuff and kind of how it goes. A lot of people are guests, So, I mean, anyway, so you can kind of see. I also drilled and tapped this right here, so it's drilled and tapped. So I like to do that with everything. I just don't like having nuts and stuff on the back of every single thing that's hard to get to in case you need to service it later. Obviously, if you can, that's fine, but this particular case, no. I want to be able to take them off easy if need to be. All right, so that's pretty much it. Cool. Got another set of the can-do arms. You guys like Mazdas and Toyotas and Nissans, they have the best tubular arms for that. It also eliminates the strut rod by using this piece. Goes in where the arm goes, eliminates it, so that way you have a true A-arm configuration. Get rid of that strut rod that's in the way. So for all your A-arm needs, you want to hit up Can-Do, who has actually been bought out by Barden Metal Fabrication. And these guys, they're on it. They get stuff out quick, and they can make things to your specifications. So for mini truck stuff, can't beat it, so check them out. It's the first time I bagged one of these Mercs with this suspension, and ran into a lot of issues, to be honest. So, and the issues just made everything take like so much longer to do all this and figuring and so on. But we'll kind of go over that, and I'll kind of show you what I ended up doing and kind of where I am right now with this thing. It's getting close now to being done, but I have one side, the driver's side's 100% done, and I'm getting ready to transfer everything I did onto the passenger side. So this video is kind of a little backwards, but I kind of wanted to finish one side 100% to make sure everything works good before I go to the other side, and then kind of show you how I did it, kind of show you what it looks like done here. But anyway, I'll kind of flip the camera around and kind of show you where I'm at with this thing and kind of go over a few things and let you guys check it out. So what we used, obviously, is we used the CPP A-arm kit. So like I showed you guys before, disc brake kit comes with aluminum hubs, so you can run. It cost almost like $400 extra to run the aluminum hubs, but what I was able to do is it gives you multiple lug patterns, so I was able to keep the stock rims. And originally I had ordered different wheels and I returned those, but they didn't give me that option for this originally, so I ended up using it because I'd rather have the same lug pattern front and back. The other thing is I had to notch the crap out of the frame for the steering. Do have to run a small spacer to keep the wheel from the caliper. It barely was touching it, so I just put a small spacer on there to keep the wheel from that. The big issue was all this. I had to cut all this out. I know you can't really tell that much right here, but whenever we do the video doing the other side, you'll be able to see. This had to be cut out so much, and the reason being is if you look at the A-arm, you see how it goes up, and you see how they have this plate. So what it does is it lifts this stuff up over a little over 2 inches. So it doesn't have a drop spindle, which I would much rather have a drop spindle, but this kit comes this way, and this is what we used. And anyway, so by doing a dropped A-arm, what that does is that pushes all of this all up into the frame way more than I'm used to doing. I had to cut, that's the actual fresh air tubes that go in. A lot of people cut them all out, but I had to notch it all out and rebuild it all back in up here so the arms are clear, because they literally go all the way up to the top of that and just miss that by about 3/4 of an inch. So I'll give you an idea how far up all this stuff goes. So when all this goes up in there, what happens is the bag has to be way up in here. So then the bag is like wanting to hit everything. Normally you can use a different bag in here, or smaller bag, or, you know, different, you don't have to cut out as much. But on these cars, the way that they're built, that there's actually, when you cut this out, there's like another piece in here on both sides, and that's what the strength is. So when I cut all that out, there was not very much strength left holding all the frame and everything together. So I had to build the whole inside. All of this had to be replated and all new pieces made. I even had to weld a doubler plate here. It's hard to see in this right here. Let me see if I can get light. So that whole plate in there, I had to make that whole gusset to go into the frame right there. And then also in the front for the shocks, that's the other problem on these cars, is that rear steer, there's nowhere for a shock. Front steer, the wheel will hit it no matter what. So I do notch the frame for the shock to clear. You can see all that. So the frame is notched for the shock, and then that way when it goes down, it clears. You can turn the wheel lock to lock. Try to get the wheel as close, the shock out as close to the middle as possible. It's not 100%, but it will ride really good with this gas shock on there. Then I had to plate all this. I had to make another, not only, that's the gusset for the shock mount, but behind there's a whole gusset from the frame into the cross member to keep that strong. Obviously, don't make all this tubing in there to fit. That was a pain. But the thing that took so much is just reinforcing and welding all these plates in and making all these plates, welding it all in, making it fit to get it to fit. That took a long time, and doing the shocks. Welded the bung in the bottom of the shock here. Still gonna probably put a doubler here. And then to put the, get all the, let me put this up here. Get all the sensors mounted to where it all works good. There's just not a lot of room, so you have to just improvise and make things work. And but they're all in there, they all work good. So this side, everything is good, but it just took so much more time than I ever anticipated for this, because I've never done it this way. I still have to figure out the battery, because the battery was mounted. Well, actually, the battery came to the bottom of this, so obviously that's not going to work. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the battery still. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. So I got it all put together, brake line on. Everything is like just kind of, you know, finger tight right now, just to make sure it all works. It all works good. I'll let it down so you can kind of see how far that goes up. The bag goes up in there. See the steering where it goes all the way up in there. So now you can kind of see. So the whole bag goes all the way up to the bottom of that. Usually this cup is down here, 2 inches, 2.5 inches taller at least. It's usually a 4.5 inch or 4 inch cup. This cup's like 2 inches. So what that did is it just put all this bag up in there, so you have to have room. And when you cut out enough room, it's not like a Chevy truck where you cut it out and you have a ton of room left. This is actually the support of the frame in there. So I had to reinforce everything, weld it all back together, then plate everything in there to make it strong. Figuring out the shock mounts, all that stuff, so it works. As you can see, I always leave about a 1/2 inch or so on my shock when it's down all the way. That way, if they change tire sizes and stuff, they don't have to go back and try to change shocks. So anyway, so you can kind of see how far up in there it goes. But the steering is like all in there. But look where the A-arm is. You can see, right? Here, let's go on this side. You can see how close the A-arm is right there. You can see how far up in here this is. So, you know, it's a lot of work. A lot more than I've ever done on the front of a car before. You can also see the shock here. All the sensors, everything stays good and aligned. And the shock goes all the way inside of there. Still have about a little more than a ½ inch clearance. So now, that's what the other side looks like. And if you look in here, when you cut, that's the inside. There's no more room than here. See, that bag just does not fit. If you use a really small bag in the front of this thing will ride like shit. It'll be super stiff. It'll take a crap load of air. So yes, it's a ton of work to do. At the end of the day, it'll be worth it, but it's a crap load of work to do. A lot more than what I thought. Universal has a single billow bag that fits in there that you could use possibly. But with the way that A-arm was, I wouldn't trust it because it's going to end up with so much flex that I would not trust that. That the band, like the A-arm going and moving so much that it would pop the band off possibly. I just don't want to take that chance. So at the end of the day, I did all this extra work. But whatever. So now I got to do this side. And do the exact same thing to this side. And then this thing will come off the lift, and I just have to put the interior back in and hook up all the, mount the battery and hook up all the rest of the wiring that's all ran up to under here. And then we should be pretty good to go. The other thing I did is that literally I made a template for every single piece. And then I save all the templates. So now when I go back to do the other side, when I cut everything, I can test fit all the templates to make sure they're exactly the same. And I can remake all the templates. I can make everything so I don't have to go back and start all over. This is the piece for the notch of the air vent tubes. So everything is pretty much, it'll go quicker. Let's put it that way. So that's kind of where I'm at with all this stuff right now. I could not rerun the sway bar. It went too far up in there. So I couldn't. If it would have had drop spindles, then I could have. And for some reason, they use these Granada front spindles and hubs on everything, and nobody makes a drop Granada spindle. Fat Man's used to make one back in the day, but they went out of business, so there is no drop spindle for Granada anymore, which sucks because they would have eliminated all this. But at the end of the day, if I had to do this again, I would not use these A-arms. I would have probably bought a Mustang 2 front suspension, which we had discussed. But it was going to be a ton of work to put it in with this motor and all that stuff. And we just thought that this would be like a nice, simple way to get it down. And it ended up making a shitload of work. So I probably would have cut the frame off here and here. And then I would have built a new frame. And then I would have put a Mustang 2 front suspension in this thing. I've done that before on a couple Buicks and a couple of these cars back in the day. That way you still retain all the front stock stuff for the bumpers. But I thought that was going to be too much for this car since they actually offered a disc brake kit with A-arms. So, but at the end of the day, it worked. And here's the other thing. This will be just fine if you're lowering your car and you just want to throw some simple bags in it and you don't worry about if the frame's 2 inches off the ground. This will work perfect. It'll be fine. Unfortunately, this car, the frame's going to lay on the ground and the lake pipes that were on the side hung down below the frame 1.5 inches. So it would have been easy to get it to that level, but not to go that extra 1.5 inches makes all the difference in the world. So to get this frame to lay on the ground, it was like complete different situation. Like even that last 1/2 inch was obviously cutting it close, So yeah, if it would have had drop spindle, this wouldn't be up in there that far either. Okay, so that's just kind of the way it is. But here we are with all that. So anyway, just kind of giving you a little heads up where we are, and I'm gonna start on the other side today. Start cutting it all out, getting it all ready to go, and start putting it together. And then hopefully in the next 2 days, I should be done with that side. It took me a 1.5 weeks or longer to do this side. So just to keep figuring it out and a little at a time, making sure it all was right. Because I had to support the whole front of the frame because there wasn't a lot left until I rebuilt it all back in there. So Anyway, so that's kind of where it is. So here I have all the stuff laid out for the passenger side. So I made the cups at the same time. I made this is the steering notch piece. I made this one I made them both at the same time. This is the rough cut piece for the notch in the frame for the shock. This is the extender for the upper A-arm. This is my lower. Basically, it's like a big washer that bolts on the bottom of the A-arm to the bag there so that you still have some adjustment if you need to. Upper A-arms, lower A-arm, and I had to trim the bump stop mount because when I have it all the way down, this one I have not trimmed yet, but now I know what needs to be trimmed. So when this is all the way down, you can see I have it marked. It barely kisses the bag, and I don't want it doing that. So, and this sway bar mount, since we cannot use the sway bar, I cut that off of this one already. So I just have it all trimmed out and ready to go. I've already trimmed out this side. There's really no reason to show you all the cutting and crap, but I'm gonna show you before we put anything together so you can see how much I did have to cut. These holes were actually for the bump stop mounts factory, so there was rivets. I had to knock those out. I actually welded a plate in here. That's with all my templates I have over there. I'll kind of go through the templates real quick too, just so you kind of see. So this is the way. This saves you a ton of time, by the way, if you do this way. So I made the templates on the other side, and by doing that, obviously, it helps me lay out how much to cut on this side and marking everything out. I actually made a template of the eyebrow, put it on here, so I could cut it out and get it the same. But like you can see, this is that goes there. And you can, so that plate, that'll be a plate that's made there. And then this plate actually goes up in there, and it has to be these once I get them tacked in, have to be heated up and formed to fit. Like, so you have to like heat them cherry red and kind of hammer and lightly without putting big giant dents and stuff in them. You have to do that so that way you can get it to fit nice and still clear the bag. So that's what my templates start. Then I have another template that goes all back in here that's bent, that fits all in here. So I put these pieces in first to get the frame strong. And then I have reinforcement pieces that go back here that I showed you guys in the other video. And then I actually, once I get that all tacked in, I come up here and I actually put the shock piece, cut that and put it in. You have to support the front of the frame when you do that. And then I put that piece in, and then I have another gusset that goes all in that too to hold all the front of this frame up here. And then I plate the front of the frame. So I get all those kind of done, and then I weld in a whole piece under here to double this all up and connect it in so that it's back strong again. I also will weld all this together first and grind it back down, weld all this solid, weld all this. I just rather do that because just so I know it's a little bit stronger, obviously. So that's kind of where it is right there. So it's all trimmed out with my templates to get it close. But before I weld anything in, I want to put it all together and then check all my clearances. And that way, if I need to trim anything out more now, I can do that now. And once that's trimmed out, then I'll pull it back apart and I'll start making all these pieces and start welding up everything and putting one piece in at a time. And once that's all done and those are all welded in, then I'll get on to the shock mount itself and the doing the shock mount and the ride height sensors. But now, since I have the shock mount made and I know the location here, I'll start with the bottom. I'll measure, drill it out, put the bung in, tack the bung in place only with a small tack weld, and then I will cycle the suspension with the shock, and then I will get the upper shock mount lined up. And I do this at ride height, not all the way down. It's very important that you do not set the shocks up when they are all the way down or all the way up, okay? Because this pivot will change, and you want to keep the least amount of bind on this lower mount and upper mount as possible. So what you want to do is that you figure out your heights, which I already have figured out. And now that I have the mounts, I can go ahead and do the bottom, and then I can tack the upper. Then I put it at the ride height where it goes, and then I reposition this lower one and get it to where the shock is perfect at ride height. And once everything is perfect at ride height, your cycle is only half of that up and down between there. And so that way you have less bind, or any bind whatsoever, really. You really won't have any when it's at ride height. And that's the same way for the bags. You figure out the height, and then at ride height is when you want everything straight and lined up perfectly, because that's where you're driving it at. Whenever you lay it down on the ground or lift it up all the way, it will keep everything in alignment good the whole time, so you don't have problems. And this stuff will last forever if you do that. If you don't do that, you're gonna wear your bags, you're gonna wear your shock bushings, all that stuff will wear out fast. And it's just lack of planning, really. So you want to make sure you understand planning this stuff out. So everything should be set up, either in the mid travel or ride height, whatever. As long as you do that, you should be fine. All right. Never had any issues when I do that. I see a lot of people putting their stuff in when it's all the way down, and they make the bag like all perfect. And then when you lift it up, it's all wonky. Same with the shock. You don't want that. So set it up where you're going to drive it at, and make everything level and lined up there. So that way when it goes down, it just barely moves one way or the other. So it's not as much movement. So that's kind of where we are with all this right now. As you can see, I still need to cut out all this up here, which sucks. Pain in the ass, but that's what it looks like before it's all cut out. And then this, I had to cut all this out from back here up, and then notch all that. So I'll do the same on the other side. So it's not that it takes forever, but it took forever to figure out the other side. This side, be easier. I'll be able to mark it out and go, but it's still very time consuming to get it all done. And this sheet metal is it's like 22 gauge, paper thin. So when you tack weld pieces back together on it, it's a pain. So, but anyway, so getting pretty close here. So I'm hoping to get this all today started, get all these pieces made and all this welded in here today, and get all that done to where I'm starting to do, and I'll cut all this out, and that way I'm starting to get all this stuff ready. So that way tomorrow I can make sure I finish the shocks and the ride height sensors. And once that's all done, then I'll blow the whole thing apart all the way. And once it's all taken apart, I'll take everything apart, I'll paint all this stuff. You want to paint all this, it's just going to rust if you don't. So you can mask these off and paint everything. Paint the spindles rust right away. So I'll just paint all that stuff. Do all, sand out all this stuff and retouch up the A-arms and things like that. And then I'll paint all the frame, paint everything. And then just that way then I can just reassemble it, all right? So that's how I do it. I mean, obviously you can do it however you want to do it, but that's how I do it. Seems to work out pretty good. All right, so hopefully you guys follow along and check it out. Oops, sorry. You just kind of, hit the like or suggestions. If you guys got things, tips and tricks that work better than what I'm doing, I'm all open always for that. I'm always willing to learn stuff. Also, comment if you like it, subscribe. Hopefully we're trying to build this channel, do cool stuff. As soon as this is done, we're going to get back on the mini truck stuff and start hitting that again. But this is a big job. Turned out to be a lot bigger job than what I anticipated, so it's taking a lot longer. So I'm just trying to get it done and out of here, and then we'll get back on the other content. So follow along.